Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast, where we explore your hidden thoughts and desires, revealing your greatest drop the mic moments. Now, here's your host, Art Costello.
Welcome to the Shower Epiphanies podcast. Today, I am honored, thrilled, excited. Can't even describe some of the emotions I'm going through to introduce my audience to Dr. Anthony Manna. Anthony is a well-traveled, incredibly gifted writer, children's writer, even though I don't think that his book, Loukas and the Game of Chance, are a children's book. I believe that every human being on the face of the earth ought to read this. I'm going to let him explain the book later, but we're going to get into his story. Welcome to the show, Dr. Manna.
Well, Art, thank you so much. I'm honored. I just love this. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's really my honor, and it's going to be an honor for all the people who get to listen to this wonderful journey. Could you tell us how this all began for you?
Well, sure. The question is a little daunting, but I think my youth was spent in New Jersey. I think the thing that I remember most is my immigrant mother coming from Italia, and my father, who was born in this country and carried on within the world of boxing. He was a boxing referee and a trainer, and I think he wanted me to be there, and I was petrified because he would take me to these training camps, and these guys were beating each other up, and I shouldn't put it down because, I know it's a sport, and they were trained in this sport to be very, active and also very skilled. And he was there to help them. And so most of the time I admired what he was doing because we can use the word empowerment because that's what he was doing in so many ways. And there was my mother in the background who was basically illiterate, but was able to tell me stories about growing up. She grew up on a farm outside of Naples, and I loved hearing her talk to us. I had 4 sisters and 1 brother, and I am, and probably still will be, the baby. Bambino, Andonio. And I heard my father speaking Spanish because he was fluent in Spanish, and my mother spoke Italian. And so it was somewhat of a mystery sometimes to try to understand what was going on. And they both spoke English quite fluently. So everything was going okay. And the stories that I remember the most were stories of hardship because my father lived through the Great Depression. And he had, at one point, he was working in a bank as a teller in Manhattan, and he lost everything. And here he was, with so many children, et cetera. So it was a struggle. And we grew up with a great deal of love. My 4 sisters still live on, and we all support each other very, very much. My brother passed quite a while ago, and we always talk about missing him. We were very close-knit. And we loved good food. So it was a great upbringing. I spent my years in Catholic schools, and I mention that too because I wound up after graduation from high school. I thought, all right, it's either going into the army or going into a monastery. I thought, what could I do? Well, I decided to go into the priesthood. And I thought I could serve my country better that way, I think. And so I spent about 5 years. I studied first to be a parish priest, and then I went into what I absolutely loved, which was a monastery in Iowa on a farm. And most of the time spent in silence and contemplation. I needed that so badly because as an adolescent, I was pretty much out of control. I just did not understand how to study. I didn't understand really how to read. I remembered a lot of oral stories, as I said, from my father and mother. But as far as getting me down into language, that came much later. And it came, believe it or not, some people say, how could that have happened in a monastery? Well, because we also went to college classes. And I was majoring in biology. But I had a longing more as I started reading more. I thought, oh, so this is literature. I love this stuff. What's this all about? So that naturally, that's my segue into, finding my way back, after I left the monastery, because I just knew that I needed to go out on my own and prove myself possible. And so I went out and I majored. I changed my major to literature with a concentration on Shakespeare, because I took Latin. I had a lot of Latin and a lot of, ancient Greek. I took courses in ancient Greek and Latin, and eventually wound up with a couple of degrees, a master's and a bachelor's degree. And I wound up teaching in a middle school. It was a fantastic experience. I was learning my way. What is teaching all about? What do you do as a teacher? And what came to me right away was that I was there to let these kids know that they were good and that they had a brain and that they could think, and they could think critically, and we were going to go on a journey together as teacher with student. And so that lasted for quite a while. I was teaching around. Actually, my first teaching experience with my master's degree was in Istanbul, Turkey, and I was there for 3 years. And of course, how could I not say that changed my life? I mean, I'm living in an Islamic world. My foundation was taken away from me in a sense, and I was, with food and people and a language, and it was really quite an interesting place to be. At that point, I was married then to Ruth, and who remains one of my very, very best friends, and my son was born there. So there are ties there that are eternal. And then I came back to the States. It was a shock after 3 years of being in a culture that was so ancient and so rich, constantly rich, that I didn't know what to do. And so I thought, well, let me see if I heard something. What is this PhD thing? Let me go and see what that's all about. And actually, I stepped into the University of Iowa to act. I was working on an MFA in acting. I was going to be a Master of Fine Arts in acting. And I did that for a year or two. I had a lot of leads. I was really learning the craft, which was so exciting. But I started thinking that, am I going to spend my years in New York City begging on my knees for work? Hey, I don't think I want to do that. So what I did was I entered this PhD program in English literature and English education. And it was good. It was good for me. At that point, I had learned how to read. The monks taught me how to think and read. And I remember and they changed my name when you go into a monastery, like they changed my name. Of course, my name was Christian, how original I know. But anyway, they would say, Christian, sit down, shut up, and read. And this is the way you do it. And I would say, yes, Father Hilary, yes, Father Hilary. And also Father Hilary was my first writing teacher. What a gift that was, because he was so honest and he taught me how to craft.
The need to have closure in any given situation is sheer human nature. And when it comes to romantic relationships, this desire skyrockets. Has your previously failed relationship left you in immense pain? It's not uncommon for people to shy away from a new relationship after their first one fails miserably. The fear of the unknown makes them hide in a shell to prevent any future heartbreak. Relatable? Despite wanting to love and be loved, you can't take the plunge if your mind and heart are still locked somewhere in the past. Maybe you aren't aware of the power of releasing the past, or perhaps you don't know how to do it. Art Costello in his online course teaches the art of moving on from bad places to happier, more stable ones. This course can change your life for good, helping you beat all kinds of negativity on the road to eternal bliss. Sign up now before the gloominess gets the better of you at expectationacademy.com.
So there I was at the University of Iowa getting this PhD, working really hard. It was a lot of hard work, And so I wound up with the PhD, and then I found myself at the University of Maine. That was one of my first positions there at the university in a regional campus in Farmington, which is very close to the Sugarloaf Mountain, which most of my students were in that school because they wanted to ski. And so I had to constantly keep getting their attention, like, I'm here now, and There's no snow on the mountains. So you have to be here. You have to do your work and you have to hand it in. Okay. So we got through that beautifully. And I went into theater for children as an actor for a while there while I was still teaching. And that was a marvelous experience. We did a lot of improvisational theater with people from all around the place. And we went out and performed for kids. It was a great experience. And so in the meantime, I was also developing my love for children's literature and for literature for teens and tweens. And I started teaching those courses along with courses in writing. Eventually, I felt the itch that I needed to move on to a research university. I don't know, I felt that urge. And so I left my tenure track position, which people said, we think you're nuts. And I said, yes, I know I'm nuts. And so I left that position and I thought, now what do I do? Well, I looked around and I thought, will any university take me after I just kind of quit? Well, I got this interview at Kent State University, the famous Kent State University, and that was in 1982. So I was beyond that terrible thing that happened where those students were shot dead during demonstration. I was there. I got there in 1982 because I went to this interview. I had come from a theater. I was really loose. And by that, I mean, I was very relaxed, because I was with theater people and they were just crazy. And, so when I was at the interview, I remember one thing I did was I jumped up on top of the table. This is so embarrassing. I would never do this now. I jumped on a table and I started this improvisation about the way that I teach. And they were like, what? I think back now on, they told me afterwards, they said, but that's why we liked you, because you were so crazy. And I said, well, I don't know. I was like that then, And so I spent that time, I was at Kent State for about 30 years. And in the meantime, I heard about this Greek exchange program from the university where they sent me there, and then one of their faculty members came here. And I wound up in Thessaloniki, Greece, which is the ancient city thereof, north on the Bulgarian border. And I was at Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And one of the things that I wanted to do, and I'm glad I did it, was I wanted to go into a school situation, because I knew if I went into a school situation under the guise of researching, that I would learn the cycle of the year. I would learn, since there's no separation of church and state in Greece, I would learn the religious holidays. I would learn the secular holidays. I would learn about family life, etc. So I was going to go to school. And I wound up in first grade. And it was a kindergarten, first grade, on the university campus in their experimental school. And it was the best thing that I ever did. I started learning the language a little bit. And I started hearing, of course, the kids in their reading time were reading Greek mythology. And, I knew that because I had, but what I didn't hear, all of a sudden I started hearing about ogres, flying beasts, darkness and the depth of where people had to go to survive, like on their journeys to find their soul and all. And I said, wait a minute, what is this? And they said, these are our folk tales. These are our fairy tales. And I thought, well, look, I've been studying children's literature for a long time. And I know that we don't have very many of these stories at home. So that began the Greek folklore project. And I worked with my Greek colleagues to research and to look for the stories, I would just read massive amounts of Greek stories to figure out which ones, could we take and translate into English so that they could be available for the English-speaking, English-reading world. And so when I returned to the States 2 years later, I had a lot of stories, and very boldly, in those days, you didn't need an agent as you do now. And so I just sent them out. I sent out the first one, and I remember it was accepted at Simon & Schuster in New York City. And she said, this story is a mess, but I think I can help you learn how to write it. And I thought, oh, Thank you so much. I was like, down on my knees in Manhattan saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, anyway, that's exactly what Ann Schwartz did. She is now at Random House and has her own line, Schwartz Wade Books. And she took us, that is Sula Mitakilu, who is my co-author. She took the two of us and really taught us how to craft a story. And she's always there with me. When I'm writing now, she's beside me, because she gave me such insight into, when to draw back, when to move in, when this is too much, when this is too little, and when you're not being authentic and truthful to yourself in the story. And so that started the project. And that's why today, what I did a few stories with Sula they were published at a number of different places, and there were 2 picture books, and there was an anthology of 20 stories. But with Loukas and the Game of Chance, I decided to go on my own. And what I wanted to do was to see if I could challenge myself to take a basic folktale, because, folktales or fairy tales are very brief. They're very economical. They get right to the point. There's a struggle. They go off, they travel somewhere, they come back, they've learned something, that's the end. Everybody lived happily ever after most of the time. Well, with Loukas and the Game of Chance, it was a story that we had included in the anthology, and it was called The Snake Tree, which is an intriguing story, an intriguing title. And so I thought, how can I do this? What can I do? Well, I took it and I invented, and I opened myself up to it, and I said, all right, let me take this story and see if I can turn it into something that is going to be attractive, that is going to entertain, but at the same time is going to awaken whomever. At this point, I was thinking maybe middle school, middle school, ages 8 to 12. But I knew I could feel that it was blossoming out into something quite different, and that the character grew up, and all of a sudden, the character who had amassed a lot of wealth because he became friends with the dancing, talking snake, all of a sudden lost everything. And there you go. It sounds like life, sounds just like life. And so what do you do when you are, when you're given the lemon? And my character, I decided, needed to find his way. And here he is. He's now married. He's got 2 beautiful kids and a gorgeous wife by the name of Thera, who was also a very talented seamstress and very much in control of her life. So what is he going to do? And he's going to have to either give up, because he just lost everything, including at this card game. He lost his family as well, because the merchant, who was very greedy, wanted it all. And so, what can I say? Loukas has to go on the road. Now, I don't want to spoil the story and tell you all what happens, but I can say that, yes, it ends happily. But what must he do? What struggle must he go through in order to gain back his life and his family? And that's the gist of Loukas and the Game of Chance.
Has anyone ever inspired you to discover a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled you? It is a magical experience, isn't it? Inspiration is indeed very powerful, yet it's often undermined. It can lift you from the ground to the sky in no time. Have you ever thought about returning the favor by inspiring the people around you? If you don't think you have it in you, we have good news for you. Art Costello's online course has everything you need to learn to supercharge yourself and shape your character into a powerful personality. Get ready to discover your strengths and unleash the creativity within. Don't believe it? Check it out yourself by signing up for this life-changing course at expectationacademy.com. That's expectationacademy.com.
I think that's what makes it so authentic and real. And when I was reading it, I can't tell you how many times I welled up in tears and how many smiles were on my face, because the book is a journey of people's lives and the transitions that they go through and the joys and the sorrows. And, life is never this easy street. If you've lived a life of easiness, you really haven't lived, and that's just my opinion. And I think that you're the epitome of that. And I am too, because when at some point in our life, we made this transition in our brain and choice that said, we're going to step out and live life differently than everybody else. And that's really what I think is so beautiful, intriguing, and so genuine and authentic about it is because, when you were talking, one of the things that I really started smiling about was I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, great.
I was born in Teaneck, New Jersey. I don't know where you were born, but, my life in New Jersey was very good. And then my parents, for some unknown reason, decided to buy this old dilapidated farm in upstate New York. And I mean upstate in just 60 miles below Rochester and a place called Avoca. And when they bought it, my life changed for the worse.
Oh.
But for very different reasons. My parents fell apart. It was a great stress on our family. My dad got sick and almost passed away. There was just a lot of things that went on. But it was meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was meant to be because it's made me who I am today. And all the things that I learned from that period of transition and sorrow in my life have led me on this incredible journey that I see myself in your story, in your book. And that is the common theme, because I think that there's lots of us in this life who have gone through them. And for some reason, there's just some of us that make this choice to make, as you called it, lemonade out of lemons, And then there's others that have chosen, and I say this because my siblings chose the opposite. They chose to let it hold them back instead of catapulting them forward. And what's always intrigued me is why? Why psychologically? What was the seed in me? Because I was raised Catholic. I was raised by priests and in a Catholic school, taught Shakespeare in the third grade. And people just don't believe that, that we can comprehend Shakespeare at that age. But we can. And it's explained well by the priest. And we learn Latin as altar boys and all those kinds of things, which give us great basis to move forward from. And then you have to lose everything sometimes to really make it really all solidify together. And either you let it beat you down or you rise above it. 2006, I lost my wife to ovarian cancer. And it changed my life, because for 3 years, it beat me down. I grieved very badly and in very bad ways. But yet 3 years later, I rose from the ashes and really moved my whole life in a whole different way. I'm going to be 73 in August, and I'm probably living the best life I've ever lived. And I don't mean that financially. I don't mean that any other way than spiritually and in passionately about what I do. And I see that in your story. And then I see it in your writing and how you've moved through. How much of your life do you think actually corresponds to the characters in your book?
Wow, what a great question. What comes to mind right away, when I was coming to mid-career at Kent State University, I was really in a bad place all of a sudden. I was very lost. I had gone through a divorce, and I thought, now what? I mean, I need love in my life, don't I? And it was here I was. I just won a major award at the university. It was the Distinguished Teaching Award, and I was like being carried around like as a laurel, through the campus. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah. But deep inside, I was so sad. So I went into therapy. And I loved this guy. He was so cool. And he just said, "You sound like you're filled with shame." And I thought, how do you know that? And he said, well, think of some of the things you've just told me, I'm going, okay, all right. That's my Catholic upbringing. I'm so sorry. How do I get rid of it? What do I do? He said, no. He said, let's experiment together because I'm working on a new therapy that I want to introduce to you. And to make a long story short, he gave me a book called Get Out of Your Mind and Into Your Life. And it was about mindfulness. And I thought, wait a minute, what is this? And basically what it is, what it continues to be in my life is an awakening to what? The fact that we all are going to reach a point where there's going to be suffering, where there's going to be tragedy, where there's going to be a shakeup. And what do? Well, you can take drugs, you can drink a lot, you can, lead the life of a rake, or you can say, this is what it is. And that's what that book, which remains on my shelf, and I pick it up about once every other month and read a chapter because it's all about coming to grips, facing it, and then trying to learn how to carry on. And mindfulness led me to becoming a student, because I am very much a student of Zen Buddhism. Mm-hmm. And it's illuminating, and that doesn't mean that I turn my back on Catholicism. I think Catholicism, it has saved me a lot and brought me to many wonderful places, and I'm sure that there are other religions that could have done the same thing. But all of a sudden, mindfulness leading me to Zen Buddhism and all of that was just a journey that I took. And so one thing that comes up a lot is the idea of loving kindness. And I thought that with Loukas in my book, what I wanted him to do was to reach into that and give it back to himself, And so he stands on that road before he enters the enchanted forest. He stands on that road. He says, before God and the spirits, I am going to do something to get this back. I vow this to myself. And that's when he hears inside himself the voice that was told through stories as a child that it is possible to go and find destiny because she really does exist.
Can I stop you right there?
Sure.
That to me was the most impactful part for me. Just as you said it again, after reading it, I still get tears in my eyes because it is a life decision that we all make. And that's the epiphany of this whole thing, is that I deserve better, I can do better, I can be better. And it just isn't today. It's every single day and every single thing that we do. We've been convinced that having a life of mediocrity is what is really amounts to success. And I disagree with it because I think living a life of challenge and overcoming it and enjoying the journey that it takes us on is really living life. And I just wanted to put that in there. So I didn't mean
Well, that's so beautiful because, that's exactly what it's about. And I think that Loukas could have so easily given up. Now, the thing about this, though, is when he goes into that forest, he brought through the ringer a couple of times. He's meeting such weird characters and their needs are so enormous, and they're even more than his, and now he takes on the responsibility of saying to those creatures and characters that he meets that, yes, I will take you with me and I will plead for you in front of destiny. And then one day somebody said, Destiny, does she have a son? I said, yeah, it's the sun. What? I said, yeah, it's the sun. And then
the moon.
a writer in my writing group said, wouldn't it be nice if she had a daughter? And I went, oh, a daughter, Luna, the moon. And so now I've got this family. And so all of a sudden, Loukas has gone on the road. He's in that forest. He's meeting all these weird creatures and he's bearing their responsibility. But see, that's part of his change because he's looking out to others.
It's called leadership. Folks, this is how Dr. Manna has put this book together. These beautiful little segments in this that are so impactful to your child and to not only your child, but to you. And I just can't encourage you enough to get this book because it is literally life-changing for somebody who needs a ray of the sun in their life and will enjoy the moon in their life too.
That's it. Yeah. And I think bringing it, I mean, most recently I went into a middle school. A teacher friend of mine teaches in a middle school, and these were 7th graders. And I just had such a good time with those kids because they right away saw what was going on. And they right away, and I said, yeah, like how many of you have had times in your life when it's been really, really difficult? And I think every kid in that room raised a hand. And I said, well, what do we do? I said, do we do what Loukas does, or do we give up? And we talked about that a little bit, and then the joy of that too was I had a PowerPoint where I showed them up on the screen the manuscript, the messy manuscript, because they said, they were like, wait a minute, you went through 20 drafts? I said, friends, I went through more than 20 drafts. I mean, that's what it, and so when they sent me the thank you notes, they all said, we can't believe that a person your age would have to do so much work to get this. And I said, what an insult. How dare you? But I mean, they learned from me, that writing is rewriting, and that getting it down means getting it right, and that there's also courage, as a writer, and I mean, I want them to know that. And that's one of the gifts I think I can give them, because it's a gift given to me to learn that drafting and making something better and feeling the quality of it in your soul and thinking that you've done something good and polished and you could present it, is what an honor,
Don't know which direction you want your life to take? Are you sinking deep down into the pit of uncertainties day by day? So, what's the secret to leading a happy, satisfied life? It's taking matters into your own hands. But what if the matters in question are a total blur? Art Costello's Expectation Academy course aims to tell you exactly how you can get some clarity in your life. This course can be your savior on your journey to reinventing yourself. While you certainly can't plan your whole future ahead, you can definitely control twists and turns your life takes. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for this course now at expectationacademy.com. Get a chance to broaden your horizons and add meaning to your life. That's expectationacademy.com.
I think one of the greatest lessons you teach them by showing them and telling them that is that anything worth pursuing is worth putting the work into. And when you go through a manuscript 20, 30 times, which we all who are writers know about, that, I mean, I can write a paragraph and go through it 100 times, and it gets tedious, but it also is persistence. And it builds this sense of accomplishment when you see and that's part of it for me with the awards you've won with this book. And I think you're going to win many, many more awards as this book gets circulated more and more into our world, because you've crafted it so well, and you can tell that it's been put together with not only thought, but with love and kindness and compassion and love. I mean, it's just put together so well.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, you should write a review.
I will.
No, and I think that, yes, I think that that's such a good thing for kids to learn, that perseverance with something that you want to make good or that you didn't even know. I mean, sometimes, they'll come out when I'm with them, we ask them to write, and I left behind a prompt, and I came back the week later, and I had some of them stand up and read their writing, and you should have seen, it was like, and it was very rough. I mean, very rough. Mm-hmm. And then some of it was so comical, and they stood up, the ones that were brave enough to stand up. And you could just tell that they were showing all their peers in that room, that you can take something, you can take an idea, and you can put it together in such a way that you feel proud with it. And why not? That's why I think we're here, is to find those moments when we can show ourselves to have some strength or some character. I mean, that's every day when I meditate and I pray for my grandkids, that's what I say, to Anthony, my grandkid Anthony, and my grandkid Loukas. You guys, may you find your strength. and that's such a great thing for a teacher to move through, and that's something that I hope I can convey to them and to the students that I meet along the way.
One of the things that is part of my core is that I believe that there's two things that every human being needs. Love is the first one, and validation is the second. Yes. When those kids stand up and they hear their other students even laugh or ridicule, can be validation for somebody, as long as they have the mindfulness and the proper perspective to understand that that is a reaction from somebody else. It is not what drives them. And that's the great lessons of that. But it fulfills those children in knowing that they have value and they're loved.
Yes. And they, we did, I said, well, now how do you respond to George? He just read his piece. I mean, just think of one thing we can say, and I don't want to forget that. I really want to remember always to have them stop and give something back, and that reciprocation goes a long, long way. I think it goes a long, long way. I mean, it's like getting a book review. Loukas is getting book reviews, and it's kind of like a validation, and not that I run around on my roller skates. Oh gosh, I'm going to be 78. I can't go on roller skates. But if I don't want to take that, to make me proudful, but at the same time, I just know that it's allowing me to carry on in my writing.
That's the teacher in you. I think that as teachers, and I consider myself a teacher, even though I'm not a credentialed teacher, because, am I trying to teach people expectations and how to master them in their life and how it can really propel you, because it's so basic to our human behavior.
Yes.
That, when we really do need that love and validation that comes from other people. One of the things that, because of what's going on here in the United States right now with the social distancing, one of the things that I do worry about is that we're going to start to lose that connection. And once you start to lose connection, things can really go awry in your life. And that is because of one thing that I really want to talk to you about. And I want to hear your perspective on this. What have you feared most in your life?
Oh, my Lord. Oh, give me hope. Okay, here we go. Well, I think one fear, and it's hard to reveal this, but I think one fear is the fear of failure.
I think that's very common.
Very common. And I think that it sometimes can strangle me and put me in, up against a wall and stifle me. But I tell you, Art, the thing that really brings me out is learning the breathing that goes on in meditation. Because once it brings me back to my senses, and that's what it does for me. Now, not everybody, meditation is not for everybody. I mean, I know that I'm not, and I would never proselytize. I would never go out and say, you get over here and meditate, or whatever. But I mean, for me, as I said before, with mindfulness and with Zen Buddhism and learning as I go along here, that the breathing in the mindful meditation, and even if it's 5 minutes of just sitting down and getting a hold on the fear that I have that day, that the writing that I'm doing, the new story I'm working on, I'm just going to breathe through it and I'm going to let myself open up to it. And then, hallelujah, does it take it away? Well, it takes it away for 5 minutes, or for a half hour or, whatever. But I mean, it just unleashes me and brings me up, back from off that wall that I've been, pushed up against. And I feel, okay, that's good. Let me go make a cup of tea and I'll be all right.
You brought up a good point, because I believe that there is no difference in meditation, prayer, or mindfulness, or any of that. It's taking time for yourself to clear your mind of all the clutter and to refocus on your expectations and what is important to you. It brings you back to reality. It brings you back to being able to calm that fear, because fear is just the lack of hope. And hope is what keeps every one of us alive. And in my research, I found that the one thing that all people who commit suicide or attempt to commit suicide or all that is they have lost the ability to hope.
Mm-hmm.
Once you lose the ability to hope, it just destroys us. And when we calm ourselves and think and relax, whether it's through prayer, meditation, whatever it is for you to do it. Don't go down that ugly path of that fear takes us. Fear is the thing that stops every human being from being who they are really, truly meant to be. Fear just stops that.
I know. I love the way you put that. And I think the thing that you're making me realize too is that in those moments of fear, what really helps me, truly helps me, is to recognize the love I have in my life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, that going to that loving kindness, going to that place, which is such an island of hope, because, that you are worthwhile, that you can also reciprocate that love, and that not to be afraid of doing that, of not, and one of the techniques, and whether this is, a lot of people who pray in a Catholic church or in a Presbyterian church, this is that one of the things about the meditation that I do is that I reach out to people in my meditation. So, I pray for the health, et cetera, of my wonderful son, people that I meet, my writing group, and it's so liberating and so fulfilling.
It's a form of giving.
Yes.
To meditate to help others to me, it is really a beautiful thing because you're reaching out to help other people I believe that we throw out vibrations. I think that we're a very magnetic species, that we throw out these vibrations. And when you pray for other people, I believe that they come full circle, always come full circle. And you never know how one prayer can change the course of any situation. And it's just keep praying. I just tell people pray all the time. The other thing that I do that I want to tell you about is that you brought up is one of the last words out of my mouth when I meet people. And I'm talking about in the subways in New York or the streets of Los Angeles, San Diego, Austin, Texas. Doesn't matter where you are. When I leave you, quite often you will hear me more so than not these words: love you, see you later.
Yes.
Just telling somebody the simple I love you and having it be authentic and really meaningful, because I garner something from every human being that I meet. Doesn't matter if he's homeless, doesn't matter if he's a professor at Harvard University, doesn't matter if he's the Pope, it doesn't matter who it is. I learn from the people around me, and they teach me so much. And I'm so appreciative of it.
What a positive way to go through your life. I think that's very inspiring to me, hearing you say this, and that stays with me, because I have to remember, So I just had a conversation, my co-author from Greece, Sula, Mitakidou, I love saying her name. She called me the other day, and it's like she's next door. And we were carrying on. And at the end, I just said, so, I love you. And she said, I love you too. It just like raised me up. Hallelujah. I have reached the peak.
It awakens the heart.
Yeah. I took that. I'm still hearing it echo, because I need that to sustain me. Mm-hmm. And also in difficult times, we are having difficult times right now, and I want to know, once again, I want to sustain the hope that, as with Loukas, my character, that there is a possibility of finding a way through, whether it's a dis-ease that is taking place all over the world, or whether it's a dis-ease within yourself. We can find some kind of, as we said before, some kind of resilience, and then in that resilience is the hope.
Well, I tell you what, that is powerful medicine right there that this world needs right now.
Yes.
Because we are, with this pandemic that's going on and all this stuff, we're not getting we're not going to have that human contact that we have. And I'm hoping that people are being fulfilled in ways. Reading your book would be a great way for people to fulfill themselves. And I'm being serious, because it is really, it does. When I started reading this, I couldn't put it down. I mean, it just moved me so much about how literature can make such a difference in this world. And we don't read anymore. We have computers. We sit in front of computers. Kids want videos now. They want these videos.
Oh, I know. And the thing too that you're drawing attention to me anyway is I love the relationship with Loukas and that snake, Lambros. The compassion and the unity, and the fact that they developed this relationship. I mean, when I first had the snake speak, it was weird, and I knew it was weird, and I brought it to the writing group, and I said, and Loukas was like, "Oh wow, yeah," and they said to me, "Wait a minute, he's watching a snake dance. He's going to say, oh, he dances and he also talks. How terrific! Hey, hi there, hi, I'm from New Jersey. Where are you from? I think we could be friends." And that's what happened. And I had to research snakes. Do snakes really stand up like that on their Yes, they do.
They do.
And then also I had to research a snake that doesn't carry venom. And wouldn't you know it, there in Greece, in the mountain district, is a snake, the leopard snake. They invite the leopard snake into their homes because it's a sign of goodness and goodwill. And I thought, this is a gift from God, that I'm finding this snake in this story, and I just blessed myself 100 times and said, all right, carry on.
But those are, that's my exact point with this. When you write and you start to have to researching all the characters, it adds to our knowledge base so much. We learn so much from them. And I'm hoping that when people read this, they start to see and start to research into these things, this mindfulness and the power that Loukas has, and the power of every creature around him, and the journey, the symbiotic journey they all take, and he takes with them, the leadership, all of that thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful story.
It's uplifting. It's uplifting to hear you say that, because, usually writing is done pretty much solitary. You're in this room, and luckily, you don't see me, but I look out a window here. I live on 8 acres. And I look out the window, and my friend found a Christ figure from a Catholic church that they were getting rid of. They wanted to replace it. He bought this Christ figure, and it's about 10 feet tall. And his arms are raised out like that, not a crucifixion, but more like an enhancement. And I look out and I see him all the time. Hi, I'm here, you're there. We can talk to one another because I know something about you, and I'm telling you something about me because I'm here writing. So let's talk. I get such inspiration from that statue. I mean, it's this huge metal piece, and how lucky I am to look out this window to see nature's fullness with the Christ figure welcoming me in.
It's not by accident.
I don't think so. I don't think anything's by accident, but I mean, This has got to be the best.
Well, we're nearing our hour.
Oh boy.
And it went so fast.
It did. It was marvelous. Really, it's so nice to meet you. I feel like, be my friend. I'm coming to Austin, Texas to look you up.
You're welcome anytime. I'm telling you.
I would love it. Yeah.
Yeah. When this gets better with all this stuff that's going on, you're welcome here anytime.
It's nice to meet up with you. I mean, I know your work. I go to your site. I look at what you're doing, and I know that you are really, let me say, enhancing a lot of people. Let me put it that way. Because the word help sounds like they're on their knees or something, but I mean, I think you're just I can see that. I can see that you are helping people come to a realization of themselves and their worth. So
thank you, because that's exactly what I want to do. I mean, I want to enhance people's lives. This is your time to tell people about where they can get a hold of you,
Oh,
Your website, your social media, all that kind of stuff.
well, sure. My website is www.anthonymanna, that's MANNA, anthonymannabooks.com. www.anthonymannabooks.com. That's pretty easy. And my email is anthony@anthonymannabooks.com. My handle, as they say, is, let's see, where am I?
At Dr. Tony 42.
Yeah, Dr. Tony 42 on Twitter and also Instagram, I believe.
Yep, both.
Yeah, both. And then on Facebook, I think it's anthony.l.manna. Let me see. Yes, it is. I'm looking at it right now. I have it on my desk here. Anthony.l.manna, all lowercase. And that's where you find me on Facebook. And I spend some time there. I spend some time on Facebook and Twitter, mostly every day.
Well, I'm going to encourage people to reach out to you because
I hope so. Thank you.
You're a very gifted writer, but you have a great heart and a great spirit. And that's what my audience is all about, great heart and great spirits. So.
I know. Well, we used to say in Orange, New Jersey, when I was growing up, it takes one to know one.
There you go. Well, Dr. Manna, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we're going to do it again. We're going to schedule you back because we didn't even get to the questions that Jonathan sent us and all
right.
that.
Yeah, that was a lot to think about.
But we'll always have a lot to talk about.
Thank you so much, Art.
Okay. And with that, folks, I'm going to let you know where you can get a hold of me. It's at art@expectationtherapy.com is my email address. You can get a hold of me there. My website is expectationtherapy.com. Shower Epiphanies podcast. Listen in. And it's been a pleasure. And Heather White, go ahead and take us out of here.
Thanks for listening to the show. Drop us your comments and questions with what you want answered on the show. You can subscribe on iTunes and Binge Network. You can also get more information on the website, expectationtherapy.com.